You're listening to On The Docket with Napoli Shkolnik.
Hi, I'm Sal Badala, and welcome to another episode of On the Docket with Napoli Shkolnik. And I'm so happy here to be joined with one of my partners here, Shayna Sachs. Together we work on a variety of cases, probably the most challenging cases. And we're happy to be here in Puerto Rico to shoot this great podcast and talk about some real litigation that's not only cases we're working on, but that are impacting our personal lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. As parents, I think the two that we're going to talk about are impact us every day. Every day. I know your kids are a little bit younger, so you're just starting to get into it, but with a 13-year-old, I think both of these litigations especially are really interesting. All right, so which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about firearms first,
Okay.
because I think there's a little bit of a correlation that we can then get into social media after.
Mm-hmm.
But firearms, because we have we have two cases going on right now, right?
Right.
Rochester and the city of Buffalo,
Right. Both in New York.
right? And we filed those now about over 2 years ago.
Right.
I know we were held up a little bit by some appellate decisions.
Yes, we were.
But yeah, let's talk about firearms and what's going on in New York. As we know, which many people probably don't know, is there is a new statute in New York.
Right.
It's GBL 898,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess it's not as new anymore.
Right.
But
Well, it's been tested now, too.
yes, and that statute allows municipalities,
Mm-hmm.
private citizens, and the Attorney General to actually bring a public nuisance lawsuit against gun manufacturers and other gun companies that are in the chain of distribution of firearms in the state of New York.
Right, right. Yeah, I think we should take a step back for a second. So you said Rochester and Buffalo, which are cities in New York, right? Does this statute only supports cities filing? Is that correct?
Right. The municipalities right now, what it is just cities and the state, and then you could have a private citizen,
Right.
like yourself, if you're harmed by gun violence and
Right.
you believe that one of these manufacturers are responsible for that violence, then you can bring a lawsuit as well.
Right, right. So it's public. What's public nuisance for the masses?
You know, that's great, because I feel like public nuisance was always a term that we heard out there.
Right.
But then when we started getting involved with the opioid litigation, public nuisance became so much more popular.
Right.
And when I say popular, more in legal type, in the legalese type
Right.
of what's going on.
Right. Certainly a more used cause of action than it was in the past.
Yes, and I think that's probably because we now see the impact is not just towards one individual, but it impacts the lives of many people.
Right.
And we saw that with opioids, right?
Right.
If you went to the park and you had needles on the ground, I mean, how many stories have we heard about
Yeah.
children playgrounds with needles right by the slide, right by the area?
Right.
And that's a story that always, we think of when bringing our kids to the park.
Right.
You would never think, wow, I have to watch out. My child may pick up a needle
Right.
or may hurt themselves
Right.
because there's a needle there.
So the idea behind public nuisance is some company, some negligence, and that negligence now has an impact on a municipality, and then they have to deal with the problems.
Right.
Right.
And they're dealing with the cleanup. They're dealing with the effects. So it can impact anything from their police department to fire department. Some of them we've seen medical examiners when it came to opioids, if they had a medical examiner.
Right.
We see impacts on libraries, right? We've
Right.
seen that recently about libraries dealing with overdoses in the
Right.
bathrooms.
Right.
Dealing with needles being flushed down the toilets. So
Right.
it's a lot. And now what we're seeing with firearms is, what's the nuisance there? How is it impacting these cities, these municipalities? How is gun violence impacting them? What's something that stood out for you in working on these cases?
I think the quantity that has come in, like the loose safeguards, and then the police having to deal with that influx. I think that's been the most impactful for me. How about you?
I think it's, again, the children
Right.
and the impact. One stat that you and I have talked about is gun violence is the leading cause of death
Right.
for children and teens in the United States.
Right.
I mean, that's something I never really thought of.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I saw that, I said, I have to look this up. Is this true?
Right. Right. Because
Right?
we only hear about, not that we only hear about, but we mostly hear about school shootings. But there's also, suicide, things like that, drive-by, anything like
Right.
that impacts, because it's an influx of the market with criminals, et cetera. And we've seen that in Buffalo and Rochester, especially.
And kids, sometimes if there's guns in the home. I never really thought of that. I
Right.
grew up in Queens.
Right.
And New York City, I want to say it was much harder for people to buy guns
It is
legally.
much harder. Yeah.
I don't think I ever went over a friend's house that they had a gun there.
Right.
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of, right?
But now you have to think, wait, I'm sending my child over for a play date. Does someone have a gun there?
Right.
Is
right.
it properly stored?
Mm-hmm.
What if it's not? What if, kids can get their hands on it?
Right.
I mean, these are things as a parent you start thinking of that
Right.
I don't remember my parents having to worry about
Right.
or me thinking about as a kid.
Yeah. So where's Rochester and Buffalo filed? It's in federal court, right?
Yes, we're in federal court. Both of them in federal court. We're at the motion to dismiss stage. So
Right.
for those that may not know what that is, that's when you first file a complaint. Defendants will file a motion, and what they're saying is, the allegations you make, they don't actually assert a cause of action. You don't have a claim here. So this
Based
case
just
should
on
be-
what's writing.
Right, and just based on the four corners of that document, that complaint, the case should be dismissed.
Right.
Meaning the court should say, okay, this case is not going to move forward, and that's all. So we're in the process of opposing that.
Opposing that.
And, we'll see where that takes us, right? Some of these cases take some time, but we'll see that next stage. And then when we get into discovery, if we get to that point, what are we going to see? What do we see from these gun manufacturers that have mainly survived this type of litigation because of a federal statute, PLACA. We hear about PLACA.
Right.
That's often talked about when you talk about gun litigation.
Right.
But now with this statute in New York, people see that as kind of a path forward
Right.
for litigation
Right.
and
Right.
a path forward for accountability, right? Accountability is so important.
Right.
And how do we put a stop to these numbers, these growing numbers of deaths and gun violence?
Who are the main defendants that we're talking about? I mean, we're talking about Fortune 5, Fortune 2 even. These are some of the most powerful lobbies and most powerful defendants around, right? What are some of the...
Smith & Wesson's a
Right,
big
that's the big
name
one.
that people have heard about. Glock is another
Right.
defendant that people have heard about. So it's kind of the common names that you've seen. But there are a lot of smaller companies, too, that do have some emerging market. I mean, we also heard about ghost guns. That was, New York has banned them.
Right.
But we started to hear about people ordering parts and manufacturing, making guns at home.
Right, printing it out.
Right. I mean, these are all things you couldn't think about, but
Right.
people were doing that.
Right.
Almost like you would order an arts and crafts from an arts and crafts store. People
Right.
were ordering something similar to that.
Scary.
Order the parts and then put them together, and they had a functioning gun.
Yeah.
So, that takes me to the next point when it comes to gun violence. As a parent, what do you think about with your child? Obviously, he's a little bit older. He's in his teenage years.
Yeah.
What do you see as kind of a way to deal with that? Are you having those difficult conversations of, hey, at school, if there's a school shooting, God forbid, do you have a place where you're going to go? How do I communicate with you?
Right. Yeah. No, they have a whole protocol at the schools now. Part of, and we'll talk about it when we talk about social media because of how these are related, the idea that how can I communicate with my child when they're at school, right? Because at the same time, you want to keep the phones away, and there's costs related to that, which we can talk about when we talk about social media. But yeah, it definitely has increased the types of conversations, more kind of adult conversations, I think, that you'd be having. But, you try to teach responsibility, aware, keep the lines of communication open, and that will relate to social media, which we're going to talk about in a minute as well. Your
Right.
kids are a lot younger, so I imagine you're not there yet.
They are, but they come home, and we had a fire drill when we were kids, right? You
Yeah.
always had a fire drill. You went outside.
Right.
They came home and they said, we had a drill, and we had to hide in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking to myself, hide in the, like, that sounds got to be so scary
Yeah.
for a little kid to have this drill where they're going and they said, we have to be quiet,
Mm-hmm.
we can't talk, and everybody's really quiet, and they take it very
Wow.
serious for young kids. We're talking about,
Yeah.
5, 6-year-olds,
Yeah.
and they take it very serious, and the schools do, I think, a really good job of the best they can, right, with
Yeah.
with the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's scary to know that that's their reality. Their reality is, if there is a school shooting, they
Mm-hmm.
actually know how to react
Yeah.
and what to do. And you just think at that young age, that's not something they should be thinking about.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And I hope that this litigation kind of brings to light, especially in New York, because of this statute that we have. I think it'll bring to light a lot of these issues, and we'll see where it goes. But we're at the beginning now because of the appeal, etc. So even though it's been 2 years, we're kind of really at the beginning.
And we saw this impact with opioids and
Mm-hmm.
the litigation. There's so much that can be done with Congress. There's so much that's done outside the courtroom.
Right.
But in your experience, have you seen where the courtroom sometimes drives that change?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, opioids is always a really good example. The example I always use is CVS, during our litigation, stopped prescribing more than 7 days at a time. They didn't do that out of the goodness of their heart. They did that because of our litigation. So hopefully firearms and social media, we'll talk about in a minute, and we've seen through the social media trials, there's definitely things that are changing. And we always say to our municipal clients, if you're seeing something, if your residents are complaining to you about something and you can't find a way through your statute, through the skills and the tools that you have, come talk to us, because litigation is another kind of aspect.
Yeah, and it's when you say that, it makes me think just about some of the changes that have come about because of litigation. And
Yeah.
we always say it in talking with our clients is, hey, if we can save one life,
Right.
if it's that one person that's addicted out there and this litigation saves them, or if there's people that are victims to gun violence,
Right.
and this litigation can save that person.
Yeah.
It means so much to us. And
Absolutely.
I think that's why you and I really enjoy
We
these
do.
cases. I mean,
Mhm.
they're very sad when you look at
Yeah.
the statistics and what's happening, and then you start thinking about your own family.
Yeah.
But it's very rewarding.
Yeah, the public impact is clear.
Right. It's rewarding to see, hey, we're going to hopefully change some lives. We're going to help people. And,
Yeah, absolutely.
and that can lead to so much.
Mhm.
So social media, we're going to make a little bit of a transition here.
Yeah.
But you were talking about having access to phones.
Right.
We're starting to see more schools
Yeah.
where they say keep your phone in your locker. I think there was somewhere you have to check in your phone, I've
Right.
seen.
Mm-hmm.
I know when we went to school, very different experience
Yeah.
with phones.
I didn't have email when I went to school. So.
Right. People, so 9/11 was my first day of high school.
Mm.
And I went to school in Queens, and I did not have a cell phone.
Right.
And I would take MTA, train, and the bus.
Yeah.
And I couldn't access, because the phone lines, if you remember, weren't working. I couldn't contact my parents.
Yeah.
And I was at school. And I think we didn't have school the next day, and I think we went back maybe 2 days later. I'm trying to remember, or the following Monday.
Following Monday, yeah.
I still didn't have a cell phone.
Right.
And, luckily I was safe. I was in the right place. But we have dealt with things without having a cell phone.
Oh, for sure.
But now I think that's
Yeah.
changed, where people want more access to their kids. Where are they?
Mm-hmm.
But now, what's the cost
Mm-hmm.
of your kid having a cell phone?
Right.
And what access does that cell phone give them to?
Right.
What can they access? Social media.
Mm-hmm. It's terrifying.
Right. And what are you seeing there?
So in terms of children, representing children, a lot of the problems have led to suicide, to bullying, to things like that. But it's also, like you said, just the access, right? The amount of things that they could just Google, and the algorithms, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the litigation a little bit, but it's with adults as well. We see it, right? You and I are having a conversation right now. I'm complimenting on the rug that my feet are on. I guarantee you this afternoon I'm going to get something in my feed about buying a new rug, right? It's constantly, the algorithms are constantly pushing it through. And we as adults are supposed to be able to kind of handle that a little better. But we're seeing with children, it's terrifying.
And as an adult, I mean, I don't know if this happens to you sometimes, but sometimes you're scrolling. I think it's called doom scrolling, right? You know, you're scrolling, and you look at this story, and then you look at the time, and you're like, wow, just 30 minutes flew by. I don't even know what I just looked at.
Yeah,
So you're seeing adults that are addicted too. It's not just the children.
Right, yeah, and this litigation we'll talk about is not about the content necessarily that the children are seeing, sexually explicit things or something like that. This particular litigation has to do with the algorithms, right? There are other litigations related to social media like Roblox and things like that are a little bit different. Those have to do with the website not preventing or identifying when there is a sexual exploitation situation. The social media multi-district litigation has more to do with how they put the website together and continuously work to manipulate children.
Why don't you tell us about who the defendants are and the types of plaintiffs you're seeing in that litigation?
So the plaintiffs right now, the first group of plaintiffs in the multi-district litigation, this is in California, by the way, there's a state litigation and a federal multi-district litigation. So the types of plaintiffs you're seeing there are, the first group was individuals, right? Those were the big kind of trials that everybody has seen where Mark Zuckerberg testified before Congress and then also in depositions, et cetera. Those are individual plaintiffs who might have been bullied, have anxiety disorders, God forbid, suicide, things like that. But there are other types of groups as well, which is something that we're exploring a lot right now. Municipalities, the impact that social media has on them, what kind of costs they have. But the next round of trials, so it's very important right now because we're in May. In June, school districts are going to be involved as well, which relates to what we're talking about. The defendants are Meta, Google, Facebook, Instagram, all those ones that you're really familiar with.
All the apps that the kids, the teenagers, and the kids are using.
And us, yeah.
And the adults.
Absolutely. So school districts as a plaintiff is very interesting, right? Because school districts, of course, have a budget the same way, but they are also every night, kids go home. There's a discussion at school, kids go home. They kind of act out, put fuel on the fire on social media, come into school the next day, and then the school has to deal with the repercussions. It's led to an increase in the budget in terms of increased social workers, security, more after-school programs, et cetera, collaboration with treatment centers. And this is, we see for some of our school district clients, we're talking kindergarten through high school. So I'm looking forward.
I thought that was stunning.
Yeah.
Right? That was important. Every time we spoke to someone, we thought maybe it was a certain age group.
Right.
And it's not. It's the entire school.
Right.
And, there's some parents that are allowing their kids to use their cell phone, right, at an earlier age than some.
Right.
And I thought what was interesting is every time we spoke to a school district, it's almost the same story.
Same.
Right? They all had the same story, and they're trying everything. And they've also told us that some of the kids will tell them, I think I'm really addicted to using Instagram, TikTok. And some of the parents have tried to intervene and say, hey, we're going to try to do like a detox.
Right.
And when you think of this, it's crazy to think of a detox of using their phone. I saw something the other day where kids, I guess, they were too much texting. Parents were bringing back landlines.
Right. Yes.
So kids can actually call and not just be there on FaceTime and actually call a friend and use a landline.
Yeah, there's a whole company now that's pushing that. Yeah, absolutely. But that goes back to the school district's costs, right? So when some of the things that's happening is you come into school, you have to put your phone in a secure place, right? They need someone to monitor that. Right? Or they have these little pouches where you can put the phone in and then they're monitored again. Still, there's a cost. Those pouches are extremely expensive, or you have to put them in your locker. There's a lot of security, a lot of extra work that goes in just to keep those phones away. But we've heard a lot from our individual clients, our school superintendents, et cetera. The kids love it.
Right.
They're thrilled to have that 8 hours where they don't have to
They're happy
deal
to disconnect.
with it. Right, because the teachers just want to teach.
And we're not talking about like one or two kids has a cell phone in the class. We're talking about pouches where if you have a class of, 60 kids, 60 of those kids are going to have cell phones.
Right. A phone, a watch, an iPad, all of that, all of those as distractions, and there's a lot of issues and a lot of discussion right now also about using Google Classroom, using a computer in the classroom, and what do the kids have access to that, right? So the school's spending a lot of money to take the phones away, take the watches away, but they're also at the same time using a computer that now their IT has to monitor as well to make sure they're not looking at things there and being able to focus. So it's really interesting, and I look forward to the trial going forward in June because we just had those two really good verdicts that we should probably talk about.
So tell us about the verdicts, and I know we saw some, and those were individuals.
One was individual. The second one was in New Mexico. So one was
The Attorney General.
One was and one's in state court. So they're a little bit different, but they happen to happen right around the same time. And those were both huge verdicts. I believe one of them they added putative as well onto it, but good sized verdicts. But it really wasn't the amount of money. It was that they're finally being held accountable for what happened, for specifically the things we're talking about, not the content, but the manipulation of the apps.
The juries are actually seeing, people of our peers, they're actually seeing there's liability.
Right.
These aren't just companies that turn
Right.
on the switch and, well,
Right.
here's social media and you could use it as you like.
Right.
I think one of the things that I saw from one of those trials was one of the things I saw from those trials was these apps, I believe it was on Instagram, where I guess it beautifies your face, and they knew that was
Right.
actually negatively impacting teen girls.
Right.
And talk about some of the things that some of these girls say they've experienced. I know I've heard about like body dysmorphia.
Right. Just anxiety, the pressure. Again, my son's 13. I can see the pressure already beginning right before going into high school. Again, your kids are younger, so you may not be seeing it as much. Maybe with your eldest,
Right.
but especially girls are affected. When I was a kid, it was more what was on the cover of a magazine, but it was only I had to see it, right? I didn't. Every time they pick up their phone, they're seeing something like that. And again, the websites, the apps are purposefully manipulating the algorithm so you see more of it. Of it. And it almost understands and feeds off of how you're feeling and then just fuels it again. So yeah, there is certainly a direction and a push to pay a little bit more attention to how it is affecting young girls. Absolutely.
And there was another stat that you and I had seen that was really striking was that teen girls, suicides doubling the last couple of years. And it's very sad. And, there's a lot that they say there's a link to social media.
Absolutely.
And what they believe they should look like or the way they should act.
Yeah.
But it's just not realistic.
No, it isn't. And you can see it with the kids when you take the phone away. Teachers will tell us that. The superintendent tells us that when you take the phone away, it takes like a good 20 or so minutes for them to just come back to base and engage. So it's clearly affecting, not only those specific things you're mentioning, but just their overall being, how they interact with people, how, they speak. They text each other.
Right.
Nobody calls each other anymore, etc.
It's
So it does have an
interesting you
effect.
say that because one of the things we saw was loneliness.
Right.
Which is interesting because they're always talking to someone, but they feel alone.
Right.
Because they're not actually face to face like we are today, right?
Right.
We're sitting here across from each other and
Right.
having a conversation.
Right.
They're not experiencing that.
Right.
And they're
Right.
not meeting, hey, let's meet at the park and go play and enjoy the beautiful weather.
Right.
Right.
And we're seeing that cost in the clients that we represent, in the schools especially. And I think there is an interplay, like we said, between, firearms and social media. These things get amplified through social media, all these issues, anxiety, etc. And it's very upsetting. But I think both of these litigations are going to be really good in terms of impacting public policy, like we talked about originally with opioids, with some of these other cases, back to tobacco even, right? We don't see smoking ads as much. It's I always say if I see
Oh,
someone
yeah.
smoking a cigarette, I'm like, oh, wow, that looks weird.
Yeah.
You're not used to that. So the idea would be that social media and firearms would be the same way.
And it's interesting because I remember being younger and the older kids they would smoke cigarettes.
Right.
Now, I don't really see like younger kids, that age group that
Yeah.
you probably saw when you were in high school.
Not at all.
I know vaping then became something, but
Right. Another case.
right, it's another case
Juul.
we've handled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not like the cigarettes that we were accustomed to,
Right.
where kids were smoking.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right; those advertisements, you would see them on TV. So,
Yeah.
we're going to fight the fight in the courtroom
Right.
to try to bring some change here.
Yeah.
What about as a parent,
Yeah.
looking at these two things? What message would you give parents out there, what they can do at home
Mm-hmm.
to help protect their kids? Because I think what we're learning here from this conversation is these companies, whether we're talking about firearms
Mm-hmm.
or social media, they're putting profits before safety.
Right.
So what can you do at home
Right.
to combat that and
Mhm.
keep your kids safe?
Yeah. I mean, to me, the most important thing is the communication, right? Just talking to them. How is school today? What's happening? Because like I said, we're hearing from the superintendents, from the schools, from the principals, et cetera, that when they come home after school between 3 and when they go to bed, that's when the fuel is added to the fire and increase. So good communication through them, good responsibility, being responsible, talking to each other, discussing, sitting around the table, talking about how it's important to talk like this, like we are. Right? I know a lot of times
Right.
we talk on Zoom, but this is good as well. You need interaction, you need personal interaction, aware of your surroundings, etc. But like we said before, sometimes there's only so much a parent can do. These companies know. They know that no matter what I do at home, they can figure out a way to make this website manipulated that I'm limited on what I can do. Right? Phones, social media, these are all things that are part of society. We have to find a way around it, and the companies have a responsibility to, pay attention to what's happening and not purposefully manipulate our children.
Right.
I mean, you could see from things that Mark Zuckerberg has said, some of the quotes in the media, some of the things that we've seen in the emails that have been produced, et cetera, that are all public, that were in Congress, et cetera. They knew exactly what they were doing. They know exactly what they're doing, right?
And they know the outcome. They know the potential outcome. They
Right.
know that their kids are going to be addicted. They
Yep.
know that leads to depression.
Mm-hmm.
They know that can lead to suicide,
Right.
death,
Right.
harm.
Right. And the government can only do so much, right? We are seeing in some places, in other countries, they're limiting social media use to 16 years old, things like that. So those are kind of some things that are working out. But like I said before, there's only so much they can do. I hope that entities will look to us to try to fill in that gap and help them fix a problem that these companies caused.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And we hope we really can help people. Like we always say, just if we save, one life, we saved someone, it means so much. And
Yeah.
that's really what our goal has been in this department since day one, is to help people and change the way these companies act and hold them
Change
accountable.
public policy.
Yep, and hold them accountable for what they've done.
Yep.
And that change will not only impact the communities, but it'll impact you at home as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And especially as a parent, like you said, both of these are really interesting, timely, topical kind of cases. So I encourage all of our clients and anybody out there who needs anything, come to us. Doesn't matter how crazy it is. Let us think about it. Let us brainstorm. We're plaintiffs' attorneys. We'll figure out a way to help. And these are two great litigations that I think talk about that.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us today. It's a beautiful day in Puerto Rico.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful here today.
Right. We have a great office here. And this is one of, I hope, many future podcasts that we'll do together.
Yes, and don't forget to subscribe or like and follow everything that our firm is doing.